Today, we're diving into a thought-provoking question. Is the Quran truly untouched? To approach this topic, we are using AI to analyze it from a strictly logical and evidence-based perspective. This approach allows us to bypass any emotional or cultural biases, focusing solely on what verifiable history and science reveal. The goal here is not to promote or discredit any religion, but to provide an unbiased, analytical examination. If you find this video insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more, and please like and share to encourage others to explore such complex questions. To answer the question, we'll apply a mix of deductive and inductive reasoning, analyzing historical evidence, the Quran's preservation claims, and contrasting scholarly views. Let's begin by establishing the foundation. 1. The Quran's claim of preservation. The Quran itself asserts that it is divinely protected. In Surah Al-Hijr, chapter 15, verse 9, it says, "Indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and indeed, we will be its guardian." This verse implies a claim to an unaltered, preserved text. The historical and textual integrity of the Quran is central to Islamic belief, with many Muslims viewing it as the final and complete revelation from God. Now, let's apply deductive reasoning here. If we accept that the Quran is divinely preserved, as it claims, we would expect to find evidence of preservation without contradictions or alterations over time. Let's examine whether historical evidence aligns with this expectation. 2. Historical compilation and manuscript evidence. The Quran was revealed over 23 years to Prophet Muhammad, primarily as oral revelation, later compiled after his death. Key companions of the Prophet, like Zayd ibn Thabit, were instrumental in collecting the verses into a unified text under the Caliphate of Abu Bakr, and later, a standardized version was compiled by the Caliph Uthman. Here we encounter some interesting questions. How consistent is this standard version with earlier recordings? And what evidence supports or challenges this consistency? Archaeological findings, such as the early Quranic manuscripts from the Sana'a manuscript, provide some insight. These manuscripts, found in Yemen, are among the oldest copies of the Quran. Comparative analysis of these texts with the Uthmanic version reveals minor textual variations, often due to spelling or stylistic differences, not in the core meaning. From a deductive perspective, these variations could suggest minor, non-substantial changes, but they do not conclusively contradict the core message of preservation. Scholars widely agree that these discrepancies are not significant enough to challenge the integrity of the text's teachings or content. 3. Oral tradition and its role in preservation. Another critical aspect here is the Quran's transmission through oral tradition. Historically, the Quran was memorized and recited by thousands, an act that contributed to preserving its accuracy. This method of oral transmission, known as tajweed or the science of Quranic recitation, is particularly unique. Reciters, or hafiz, commit the entire Quran to memory, and the tradition of orally passing down these recitations remains strong to this day. Deductively, one might argue that this oral tradition adds a unique layer of preservation, reducing the risk of alterations over time. If thousands recite the Quran in exactly the same way, errors or alterations would presumably be corrected or noticed, creating a form of living preservation. Inductively, the existence of millions of hafiz around the world today who can recite the Quran identically strengthens this claim. No other religious text has as extensive a tradition of verbatim memorization, which supports the Quran's preservation claim in an unconventional way. 4. Scientific studies on manuscript consistency. To further clarify, let's turn to more recent studies that use advanced technologies like carbon dating and textual analysis. For example, the radiocarbon dating of early Quranic manuscripts, including the Birmingham Quran manuscript, suggests these texts date back to the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad or shortly after. The high degree of consistency between these early texts and today's Quran adds to the argument that the Quran has not experienced significant alterations over time. However, here's an important distinction. While consistency across manuscripts is high, some variations are present. But what's key here is that they do not alter doctrinal meaning. For example, differences might appear in spelling or diacritical marks due to evolving Arabic script conventions. Deductively, we can conclude that these variations are too minor to challenge the claim of preservation in a substantial sense, as they do not affect the core teachings or meanings of the verses. 5. Counterpoints and alternative views. While the evidence largely supports the Quran's preservation, it's important to consider counterpoints to maintain an unbiased view. Some scholars argue that the Uthmanic compilation may have led to a selection of certain recitations over others. There is also mention of some companions of the Prophet having personal copies of Quranic verses, which included marginal notes or explanations. Deductively, we might question whether this could indicate minor modifications, even if unintentional. However, most scholars agree that these were supplementary notes, not changes to the Quranic text itself. Inductively, considering the lack of substantial doctrinal differences in early Quranic manuscripts, these counterpoints do not strongly challenge the Quran's claim of being untouched. Instead, they provide context about the meticulous process of compilation, showing an intentional effort to preserve the text. 6. Conclusion. Is the Quran truly untouched? To conclude, the evidence from historical manuscripts, the oral tradition, and scientific studies largely aligns with the Quran's claim of preservation. The minor textual variations found in early manuscripts are not enough to challenge the overall integrity of the Quranic message. Deductively, we can say that the Quran remains one of the most well-preserved religious texts, with both historical and empirical data supporting its claim of being untouched, in a doctrinal sense. However, the question of whether any text can be absolutely untouched remains open to interpretation. Scholars across disciplines encourage a balanced view, recognizing the Quran's unique preservation status while acknowledging the natural variations found in any text transmitted over centuries. If you found this exploration helpful, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more analyses like this. And of course, keep exploring. Each question opens the door to greater understanding. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.